I wanted to eat like the strongest man in the world for a day, to see just how hard it would be, how much it would cost, and what it would do to my body. First thing in the morning, I bought all the food and I was in for some big surprises.
Alright, so Eddie Hall really likes cheesecake, and I do too. He doesn't eat it every day, but I'm gonna get this and see if after I eat all of that, if I'm still hungry enough to try it. So I'm gonna use this as a benchmark.
The food cost me over $100, but on top of that, I also had to drink a gallon of water. Since I was going to be eating a lot more than you'd expect, I decided to weigh myself before and after. So at the very beginning of the day, I weighed 153 pounds.
I'm also just gonna take a quick before video so you can see if my body changes throughout this.
And with all that being said, it was time to jump into the first meal. At 7:30 in the morning, he starts his day with an apple before going on a morning power walk. I just did a crazy workout yesterday, so my legs were still sore. After that, it was time for meal 2, which I guess you can call breakfast, which consisted of an 11-ounce steak, 5 eggs, and a glass of orange juice. All this was already a pretty big meal, but by the end of the day, I realized that he eats more than I thought was humanly possible, because there was one thing that I learned at the end, which is literally gonna blow your mind. Another thing I'd like to point out quickly is that the average adult eats 1,500 to 2,000 calories a day, which is a goal that I was getting close to hitting by the end of breakfast. But after breakfast, it was on to something new. Being the strongest man in the world requires a lot of training and a lot of time to try and recover your muscles as well, which is why every day Eddie Hall takes an ice bath to help his muscles grow. I didn't have any ice, but I got in the shower and slowly turned the water down until it got super cold. It was definitely a shock, but after a few minutes, my body started to go numb to it.
Okay, right now it's all the way cold. I'm freezing. If I turn it off anymore, the shower just shuts off. Literally as cold as it gets.
It was definitely a really cool feeling when I got out, but it wasn't long until I had to get back to eating. By 2 o'clock, believe it or not, I had an even bigger meal to eat.
I need to make 2 cups of rice, and unfortunately, I have no measuring cups. However, I do have this protein shaker, so everything's gonna be measured in here.
This 2 p.m. meal consisted of 2 chicken breasts, 2 cups of rice, 2 cups of mixed veggies, and half a glass of orange juice. By this point, I was still kind of full from breakfast, and there was a lot more to go throughout the day. I noticed by this point, I'd spend most of my day either eating or cooking in the kitchen.
Okay, so I just finished this, but this took way longer to cook than I thought, so now I'm behind schedule, so I'm gonna have to eat immediately after this meal again.
It was taking longer and getting harder for me to get the meals down, but my favorite part of the day was coming up soon. The next meal he had was fresh fruit and granola, sometimes mixing in a little bit of chocolate, and the reason for this was to up his carbohydrates for the gym. As you could imagine, the strongest man in the world takes his workouts pretty seriously. And here's the thing I noticed while I was in the gym. Although I was a bit full at the beginning, I had a lot of energy. I sometimes find when I'm too full, it's hard for me to lift the kind of weights that I want. However, because of the amount and types of the food that I just ate, it seemed to provide me energy for a while. This made for a super fun gym time, but I was about to learn that this was gonna get a lot harder than I expected. If you think what I've eaten so far is a lot, you're gonna be shocked by just the stuff I've had to eat. My next meal was another 3 chicken breasts, 3 cups of rice, and another cup of veggies. But there was a problem. By this point, I was getting full, and it was taking me a long time to eat. As soon as I finished, I needed to prepare my next meal. This next meal consisted of even more chicken, peppers, and asparagus. Of course, he cooks it in butter, because we need to get the extra calories. 2 baked potatoes and a secret ingredient, which I'll tell you in a second. I was starting to feel sick by this point, but this next meal was worse than I was expecting.
I finished making this, however, the baked potatoes are taking longer than I thought, so I'm gonna eat this first and then finish the baked potatoes after.
I started eating with the secret ingredient, which is half a tub of raw mayonnaise. You heard that correctly, nothing but mayonnaise and literally half a jar of it. I'm sorry if you like mayonnaise, but this was disgusting, mainly because of the quantity. I know he needs it because he needs the extra energy, but I needed to dip everything in it and sometimes eat it by the spoonful.
Who just eats mayonnaise like this? I'm almost done though. Ah, this is literally so gross. I have a half a baked potato and like a few spoonfuls of mayonnaise left.
And you'd think by this point I'd be done. Final boss battle, right? But there was more. He finished the day with a snack of yogurt, honey, and fruit, which although was a small meal compared to all the others, it was super hard to get down. My stomach felt so full, it was hard for me to stand up. I'd gone to the washroom that day more times than I had in my life, but I was curious how much weight I'd gained and what I looked like in comparison. I didn't quite meet my goal of a gallon of water, but came close. And when I was offered my cheesecake, there was not a chance I was taking even a bite out of that. I really needed to lie down and go to bed, so I hurried to weigh myself one last time. I gained around 5.5 pounds, but I was surprised it wasn't more. And I was super bloated. I promise you I'm not even pushing out in this video at all.